Have you ever been in a really uncomfortable situation where you couldn't tell if it was an old nervous system pattern getting triggered or if something was actually wrong? Because if you get that wrong, you'll either run from growth or abandon yourself in the name of healing. If you've been following my last few videos, we've been talking about how the nervous system changes when you get activated but are still able to stay with yourself. So not calm, but not full-blown overwhelm either. Just enough activation for your system to learn something new. But once you start this work, you'll notice something confusing. When you feel that hit of activation in your system, how do you know if the work is to stay with it so it can learn something new, or if your system's actually warning you of something real and dangerous? Because healing isn't about learning how to tolerate everything. It's learning how to read the signals your system is responding to. Is this an old fear or is it a real danger? Most of the time when people feel triggered, it's coming from one of two places. The first is what we could call growth activation. This is when an old nervous system pattern gets triggered, but you're in a safe enough environment. Essentially, it's uncomfortable, but you're not in a situation where your boundaries are being violated or something is dangerous. Maybe somebody gives you feedback and it feels like total rejection. Or maybe you set a boundary with somebody and you kind of just feel like an asshole. Or maybe it's a difficult conversation and you're feeling triggered and really activated. Your body reacts strongly because the situation feels familiar. And the worst part is we usually look back and that's when all the shame hits because you feel like you overreacted or you just said something too harshly. But the current situation that you're in is different. So what you're feeling is an old pattern responding to a new reality. And that's often the place where nervous system change happens. But there's a second kind of activation. This is what we could call red flag activation. This is when something that's happening is actually not okay. Maybe somebody's humiliating you. Maybe they're violating your boundaries. Maybe you're in an environment that just has a ton of manipulation and disrespect. In those moments, your nervous system isn't being dramatic. It's detecting something real. And if you stay in those situations while telling yourself you're just healing, that's self-abandonment. And your system learns that you don't protect yourself. This is one of the biggest traps people fall into when they start doing this work. They feel uncomfortable and they immediately assume it's just them. They stay in bad relationships, toxic workplaces, friends that disrespect them and treat them poorly. And the reason they stay is because they assume that it's just their system and they're overreacting. But healing shouldn't make you doubt reality. It should make you better at seeing clearly. So how do you actually start telling the difference? There's no single perfect test, but there are signals and ways of getting clearer about what your nervous system is actually responding to. And once you start paying attention to those signals, your nervous system starts giving you more clarity and you stop collapsing every uncomfortable moment into one category and you start responding to what is actually happening. So let's look at 3 signals you can start paying attention to today. The first signal is noticing if something is coming from a familiar internal pattern or if something is actually happening right now. Sometimes your reaction feels bigger than the moment. A small disagreement feels like a huge fight. Maybe you get a little bit of feedback and you end up looping for hours. Sometimes that's an old pattern getting activated. Other times when you look back, it's somebody actually crossing a line with you. The second signal is the quality of the activation itself. Growth activation often has some curiosity in it. You might feel stretched, uncomfortable, or exposed, but there's still some part of you that can stay present. Red flag activation feels like dread, humiliation, you feel collapsed. There's some sort of loss there. The third signal is repetition. Is this one uncomfortable moment, or is this part of a larger pattern? Growth can happen in isolated moments of discomfort, but red flag environments tend to repeat themselves. The same disrespect, the same violations, the same dynamics over and over again. So, one of the first questions you can ask is, are you reacting to what's happening right now or to the past and bringing it to the present? Then you can start looking at, is the moment difficult but workable, or do you feel completely trapped? And lastly, ask yourself, is this one moment or is this part of a larger pattern? These questions won't solve everything instantly, but it can help you stop collapsing all the discomfort into one category. And that alone can change a lot. The goal of nervous system work is not to suppress your reactions, and it's not to assume that all of your reactions are trauma. If you collapse everything into one category, you lose important information. You either force yourself to stay when you should leave, or you leave the exact moment when your nervous system could have grown. A big part of healing is rebuilding trust in your own nervous system. It's actually why I end all of my videos with keep trusting your gut, keep trusting your intuition. A lot of people lost that trust a long time ago, if they ever had it at all. They learn to override their signals, explain away their discomfort, and abandon themselves in the name of being good, liked, or understood. So, self trust is the ability to slow down, listen, and ask, what is my nervous system responding to right now? What is this signal trying to tell me? Because whether you believe it or not, that signal has always been trying to help you. So, an experiment you can try this week is, as you're going through your days, maybe a conversation or an interaction where you get triggered, just go inward into your body and notice what's happening. Do you feel some discomfort, but you can stay present? Or do you feel more dread, humiliation, and trapped? And just ask yourself, is this one moment or is this a pattern? Now, we're not trying to change anything here. We're just trying to come to a place where you can notice more. Because once you start seeing this more clearly, you're going to get much better at being able to tell if you're overreacting in a situation or if it's a real red flag. And this leads to another really important question. If trusting your nervous system is so important, then why do so many people struggle with trusting themselves, even when part of them knows that something is wrong? And that's what we're going to explore in the next video. So until then, my friend, keep trusting your gut, keep trusting your intuition. See ya.